welcome to the Think Generational Wealth podcast, and this is episode number 119. I am your host, Amir Estimo. Thank you for tuning in today's podcast episode. I want to open up and say thank you for tuning in today's podcast episode again, because you could be doing anything in this world, but the fact that you are listening to this podcast, it is much appreciated. Second of all, we would like to thank our sponsors, Starville Talent Group, for sponsoring this podcast, and we'll go from here. Let's jump into the podcast episode. But other than that, if you get a chance, please subscribe to the podcast and leave a review, because we would like to know how to improve the podcast episode. Whether it's good or bad, it's okay. You can even go onto the website, www.thinkgenwealth.com, and you can submit a review or join our mailing list to see how would you like the podcast to grow and get better, because that's the only thing we can do here is improve and get better. So, because if you stay the same, you're not growing. Okay, so let's jump into the podcast. For today's podcast episode, I don't really, to be honest with you, the podcast probably going to be relatively short today, because I just wanted to, it was just something in my heart I wanted to share. And what I wanted to share is, in the podcast, is whatever you do in life, don't give up. Keep showing up. Whatever you do in life, don't give up. Keep showing up. And the reason what inspired me to do this podcast today was I was listening to the Nightcap podcast by Shannon Sharp and Ocho Cinco, aka Chad Johnson. And beginning of the podcast, they shared that they just got sponsored, or so now Boost Mobile is now sponsoring the podcast, which is amazing, because when you look at the podcast started since 2023, and now they're getting sponsored for the podcast. And the lesson I learned from that is things like that will happen for people who keep showing up and who's consistent. And this was a lesson for me regarding my podcast, because I've been podcasting, it's been a while. I'm going to say since 21 or 22, somewhere around there, and maybe even 19, but it's been on and off. It hasn't been consistent. Last year, I took a whole year off. I didn't podcast. I didn't have any episodes drop. I think I may only had one, and that was kind of it from there. Always understand that mantra. If you're consistent, you show up, things will happen for you. And what I had to notice is for me is that I said, this can't be something, if I really want to do it, this can't be something where I come in, I do a few episodes, and then that's it. It's just hard for people to give you their time if you're not consistent with your time. Me taking that whole year off, I'll share, because my podcast numbers, I don't get 1,000 downloads a week, nothing to that nature, or even 30 days. What was starting to happen, because I was becoming more consistent, I was averaging somewhere between, I would say, 70, close to 100 episodes, 75 downloads and episodes for the most part. I was averaging anywhere between 20 to 50 downloads. And those 20, 50 downloads are not necessarily it's not necessarily, if you put a new content out, let's say I drop episode 119, it was giving exposure to people to listen to other content on the podcast episode. That was really happening for me on a weekly basis. And the fact that I took a year off, rightfully so, people lose trust in you, because if you're supposed to do something consistently, people will lose trust and people go find content elsewhere. And so therefore, you now Every time you stop podcasting and you go back to it again, you lose the audience that you have. Some may stay, some may go, but for the most part, you're going to have to start again from the ground. You're going to have to go ground up again. That taught me, how many of us think that? Like, how many of us start something and we stop, start something and we stop, start and stop, and then it just keeps on going. Instead, just being consistent. The more consistent you are, the expectation you set for yourself, it's just like a TV show. How many of these TV shows you see on TV? They say, hey, we'll see you next Monday at 8 p.m. And what do? Every Monday at 7:50, you grab your popcorn, you grab that remote, you turn it on to the TV. Because you know every Monday at 8 p.m., I'm not sure your time zone, but every Monday, you know you're going to tune in to watch your favorite TV show. And that's how these audiences grow, because they know it's consistent. And they know, okay, well, one season might be 10 episodes. One season might be 12 episodes. And if there's that break in between, guess what they're doing? They're replaying other previous seasons. So again, consistency. And for us, whatever you start, don't give up. Don't stop. Keep going. Because the minute you stop, it's harder to restart than to keep going. And keep going is not easy within itself. But if you stop whatever you're doing, let's say you wanted to do a podcast. Let's say you want to do a YouTube channel. Let's say you want to start a business. Whatever that is, you have to be consistent with it. Because the minute you are not consistent, guess what happens? It's like you're building that consistency. And the minute you stop, let's say you open the year and say, I wanted to go to the gym and get fit. But my goal is to work out 4 times a week, 3 times a week. But if you work out 3 times one week, next week you work out 2, next week you work out 1. But yes, you're working out, but the issue is how often are you doing it? It's better to commit to if I'm going to work out 3 times a week, I'm going to do that 3 times a week. Don't go to 2. You can go to 4. You can go to 5. You can go to 6. Whatever you desire. But the minute you go to 2, you're going to say, you know what? I'm okay with 2. Then you go down to 1. Then it's down to 0. Therefore, the consistency is gone. And I don't know how many times, even last year, I would work out, be consistent, and then all suddenly I stop. I don't work out for like 2 months. Or I don't work out, I wouldn't say 2 months, but I wouldn't work out for a month or a month and a half. Guess what happens in between that? If I'm not lifting weights, for the most part, I like to weight train. I like to do a lot of free weight training. I could do better with cardio. I struggle with that. For the most part, I'm not consistent with cardio, but I'm more consistent with going to the gym and working out every week on the weights. And my goal is to do that 3 times a week. That's the goal. That's the standard I'm setting for myself. But if I say, for example, this week, I worked out Monday and Tuesday. I'm recording this podcast on a Friday and I haven't worked out. So as soon as I'm done with the podcast, guess what I'm going to go do? I'm going to go hit the gym. That's my 3. Now I say, okay, now I need to build myself consistency in getting into the gym, getting to do cardio 2 times. Let's start with 2. Then let's go to 3. I can't say, well, if I'm going to do cardio, I'm going to only do 2. I'm going to only do 1. I don't want to give myself any room for that. And that's the same with people, with anybody. If you're starting a YouTube channel, you starting a podcast, you want to get health, you want to get fit right, you want to stop drinking, smoking, whatever that is, you got to do it consistently. And the minute you stop, it gets harder to start back up again. I can say this, is that people like people that are consistent. If you're consistently with your word and you say, I'm going to do this, if I'm going to show up, like I say, for the podcast, for example, I said, okay, you know what? I have to start back down again. The momentum I was building now is gone because I took a whole year off, and a lot changes in a year. So I said to myself, there's 52 Wednesdays in a year. I'm going to show up every 52 Wednesdays. You will get a new podcast episode. It could be a rebroadcast. It could be just a very short episode like this one that's about to be. But the key is I'm going to tell myself, I'm telling myself, I'm going to be consistent this year. Every Wednesday, 6 p.m. Central, my goal is to have a podcast ready to go. And I have enough content where you can rebroadcast, but I don't want to do that. I want to come up with something fresh. Now, down the road, you have about 200-300 episodes. Yeah, you can start rebroadcasting some podcast episodes because you have new listeners. But a new listener is not going to be attracted to the podcast if you haven't dropped it. And let's say the last podcast I recorded, and that podcast was, hey, every Wednesday, 6 p.m. Central Standard Time. Next Wednesday, you don't show up. They're going to say, yeah, this guy's full of foolishness. And I'm pretty sure that's what happened. It's to nobody's fault except mine. That's why I'm sharing this with you, is be consistent. Be consistent. The more consistent you are, the easier it will be. You will build that momentum. You will build that momentum. Again, it could be anything you choose to do in life. And it's weird because there's people who do, there's people who do some bad stuff in life. And I'm not going to say what it is or not, but when you consistently do it, someone who ends up, I know this may be sensitive to some, and I apologize in advance, but it's just an example. Think of it as someone who's an alcoholic. Someone who's an alcoholic, what do? And the reason I'm saying this is because when I was in retail management, and I used to see people come in 7 o'clock religiously. Once 7 o'clock hit, they want to buy that beer. They're going to buy a beer. They did that every day, consistently. 365 day, rain, sleet, or snow, they're going to buy that 4-pack can of beer. Or someone who come in, buy a carton of cigarettes every week, same Friday for 52 Fridays. And I tell myself, and those things are not good for your health. But imagine you who start something that you can continue on and on and on. You keep doing it. You keep doing it. Keep doing it. Keep doing it. Keep doing it. Eventually, your blessings is near. You will hit that pot of gold. But you will not hit that pot of gold if you're inconsistent. You can't say, well, I want to lose weight, but I don't want, number one, you're not eating right. And number two, you're not working out. You can't work out one day, and then you can't work out one day, and then next week work out 2 days, next week work out one day, next week work out 4 days. It doesn't work like that. If you tell yourself you're going to do something, whether let's say it's posting on social media, you say, hey, I'm going to post every single day. Be consistent every single day. And this is not only to you guys, this is for me too, because again, this holds me accountable even more now because I'm putting it out to the universe. So what I'm doing now is instead of saying, okay, I got to have a new episode and then do the editing and all that and then drop it the next day. What I'm telling myself now, every Friday, I have an hour, I can record a podcast, get the editing done, and then drop the podcast and then publish it for Wednesday. I want to make sure I am 2 to 3 podcasts ahead. So it could be a week I have something going on or life happens. But you know what? There's still 2 podcasts, 2 podcasts that's still in the queue that's ready to go. And once I have it set, ready to publish, ready to go. But at the same token, I still want to show up every Friday and record a pod. Yeah, I can record one. I don't want to miss a Friday and then say, oh, you know what, I just had, unless I'm on vacation or something. And when that happens, I'll just record an extra week. So I can make sure there's two podcasts ready to be published every week. And then that's going to help. You do those little things. You do those little things and it will help you in the long run. You have to figure out what's going to help you be consistent. So I'm going to leave you with this. Before I'm out, I'll leave you with this. There was a post I seen. Actually, you can even, it's in a book called 3 Feet from Gold by Sharon Lecter. She's from the series, the company who produced, I forgot, not produced, but the publish Outwitting the Devil. So if you guys ever heard that, she's with that company. But it's called 3 Feet from Gold by Sharon Lecter. So Sharon Lecter, that she made a post, not Sharon Lecter, I'm sorry, she didn't make a post. This was a post I seen on social media. And what I saw was there is this person, but it's basically the 3 Feet from Gold. It's basically from 3 Feet from Gold in a sense that it's along that line. The post showed a man digging, and he was digging. The purpose he was looking for diamonds. What happens is he's been digging so long he ended up quitting. But on the other side of that wall, if he had kept digging maybe 3 more feet, he would have reached, and that diamond could have changed his life. Sometimes that's what we do in life. We start something, we keep digging, and then when the going gets tough or we don't see the results we want, we quit. But if we had kept going and going and going, you never know, your deliverance would have been near. So I leave you with that. Hopefully this inspires someone to say, even you don't get anything out of this podcast, but understand is keep showing up. Don't give up. Keep going. And I know that's cliche to say, but it's true. So thank you for the podcast episode. Again, if you like this content, please subscribe to the podcast, share it with someone who you think needs this, who would like to hear this. And also, again, don't forget, leave a review. I'm going to do my best to try to get better at social media. I just hate the aspect of constantly posting and marketing. So I'm actually in the process of finding a manager, someone that can help me manage all these things that are going. Because I hate social media. I don't really have the time to always try to post and do all this extra stuff. But I know you need a presence online because that's how you actually grow trust. People will not trust you if they don't know who you are or don't even see your face. All right. But other than that, tune into next week's episode. Again, 6 p.m. Central Standard Time every Wednesday. Much love. Peace.